Mark is in France. Joe is here with me. We're going to talk cruises, see what he's been up to the last few months, Thanksgiving, all that coming up right now on MTM Travel.
Yeah, I am glad to be called back up to the major leagues. It's been a while. Wasn't sure if I was going to clear waivers, but I am here. You answered my first question. I was going to ask, I thought Mark, well, I guess he's in France via London. And one thing, I know Mark is not listening to this, but when you are going to brag on social media about flying business class across the pond, you should at least put in your little comment what airline you're flying. I was trying to Zapruder his images to see if I could see which airline it was. My guess is British Airways or Delta, but I don't know which it ended up being. I couldn't tell. Anyway, when you're bragging on social media, give us something for the people. Just a pet peeve of mine. Mark?
Well, now I got to go look because I had a very quick look at this picture and I thought it was American, but I didn't.
Oh, it could be. Could be.
I didn't do a deep dive on. I'm pretty sure. I mean, he's probably said it on the show, which makes it even worse that I don't remember what it was. But even worse, though, Joe, is he took his whole extended family, obviously his kids and stuff, they're in business class, but I think his extended family, they were in the back of the bus.
I saw grandparents could only get them economy. It's like, they only raised him. Well, actually, I don't know. Maybe it's his in-laws, but they only raised one of them. Can you not give up your seats? Make the kids go to the back of the bus. But because of that, we are traveling to London next year, and I haven't decided whether to pull the trigger yet or not, but I looked really quickly and I saw that Virgin Atlantic has good prices miles wise, like 45,000 miles to fly across the pond to London in business class, but high fees with the Virgin Atlantic. So that's pretty annoying. And I haven't been able to find it on Delta yet. Obviously, I'm looking for 5 seats. So still debating whether, to me, it ends up, if I pay the, $500 or whatever in taxes and surcharges, it's like I'm paying $1,000 cash, it feels like, to fly in business class. But with the Virgin Atlantic, there's a couple of transfer bonuses right now. So that's something I'm deciding on as we record.
Yeah, Virgin Atlantic is interesting. I seem to have a lot of availability from Vegas lately. They just added the new Air France flight direct to Paris, which is nice. But as you say, so sometimes you'll see Virgin's 15,000 miles. And with the transfer bonus, it's even less for economy, obviously. And then business, not so bad. But then you go, especially, we all know that if you're flying business class, you have to avoid England at any cost, especially London. Because of those taxes, it's ridiculous. And maybe people don't know that they charge even higher taxes depending on the cabin that you're in. So the fees and taxes aren't the lowest when you're in economy, but when you go up to business class, it gets insane.
Mark must be, now I'm just doing the analysis on the fly here, but Mark must have been flying an American carrier, either Delta or American Airlines, because he was bragging about, however many points plus $5.60 on the taxes and fees. So I'm guessing it must be airline based. It used to be back in the day, actually, I'm sure it's still this way. When you're flying back from the UK, no matter what, you get hit with taxes and surcharges, regardless of whether it's in a US carrier or not. But anyway.
And as you pointed out, Mark is posting things from his stuff on social media, from it looks like on Facebook and Twitter, different things. I was trying to find the picture of the airplane from Twitter, but I must have seen it on Facebook. So he's being very exclusive to different social media platforms. That definitely looks like American to me, but I don't know. People can chime in. He did enjoy the Eiffel Tower. I was so worried that he was going to poo-poo the Eiffel Tower.
Have I ever told you the story that I was... first of all, good on you, Mark. Have some culture. Don't poo-poo the Eiffel Tower. Again, he's not listening to this, so I can insult him all that I want. But the first time I was ever in Paris, I think it must have been a Saturday or a Sunday, maybe it was winter. It was winter. Yes, I remember. It was in February. And the guidebook said that the Eiffel Tower was open till 9 p.m. And so my wife and I were traveling with another couple, and my wife found this really nice French restaurant where it's one of those things where you just show up and whatever's on the menu is on the menu. And it was really cheap, like 30 or 40 euros or something at the time. Excellent meal. So we were enjoying ourselves over bottles of wine. But this was our last night in Paris. And I was like, I really want to go to the top of the Eiffel Tower. I really want to go to the top of the Eiffel Tower. And this is like before everything was on your cell phone. So I was still using Rick Steves. We've talked about Rick Steves before and how much we love him on this podcast. Anyway,
Mark does not love Rick Steves.
yeah,
Can you imagine Mark following a Rick Steves itinerary?
it's so good. It's so his walking stuff is so good, and then he has the
Joe is 80
podcasts.
years old for everybody who's wondering. He just looks a little bit younger.
That's right. That's right. I had this. I was talking another random aside, but we were talking about how in Citi Field they're going to open a casino. And we were talking about whether to go to Vegas or go there. And my friend was like, "It's only 5 years away," and I was like, "That's less than 10% of the rest of our lives. We got to go now." Anyway, really dark, really dark. I apologize. I apologize.
Yes, I'm going to go cry in the corner right now.
Yes. Anyway, long story short, got to the Eiffel Tower at 8:05 p.m. Thought it closed at 9. Didn't. It actually closed at 8, and I was like begging this French guy. They wouldn't let us up. I was so sad. I was crushed. Didn't get to go to the top of the Eiffel Tower until like 4 or 5 years later. And when I got back to Paris, I made sure it was like the first thing that we did. And people may think it's like corny and overrated, but I loved it. I think going to the top of the Eiffel Tower, taking pictures in front of the Eiffel Tower, the big park in front of it, it's just a lovely place to be, and really love Paris. That's one of my favorite parts of Paris. Stereotypical, I know.
Well, same. I mean, I like walking around Paris and just taking in the vibes. And I think the vibes in that spot are cool. And I've told the story many times about sitting under the Eiffel Tower, having a picnic on a Sunday, music playing, all the Parisians out and about, just like it would have been 100 years ago. I've also talked with Mark about, how the security has changed over the years and how it's not quite as nice as it used to be when it was just wide open. Now there's big walls that block it in. The interim period was machine guns, police with machine guns. So I think security walls are better. But yeah, it's a cool place. And, I've been thinking about this because we're talking about Mark's trip and, you just casually bring up being at the Eiffel Tower. And it's weird if anybody discovers this show and then what are these people doing? How are they so casually talking about these sort of bucket list things? And that really just goes back to the lifestyle that we've lived as travelers, what we do with miles and points, and how it opens up those opportunities. And then you end up talking with your friends about having these weird viewpoints on the Eiffel Tower, which to a lot of people would be insane to even think about. The vast majority of people I know haven't been to Paris.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing is we travel less now because of the 3 kids, and it's hard for us to find a ward space. And I was just thinking about it the other day. I need to start really replenishing my Ultimate Rewards and my American Express membership rewards points as we've been using. We've been lucky to find business class space for 5 for a lot. I know that you save your money for economy. I am starting to get to the point where I'm like, maybe I can get more trips out of just using economy miles instead of spending more for business. So yeah, it's a weird hobby that we are in. I'm not as deep in as I used to be, but it's still great to be able to find a ward space, to be able to have these options. The other option I'm thinking about flying to London is JetBlue, of course, flies to London now. And I'm like, well, I guess I could fly with cash and fly on, it's a short flight. It's only 6 or 7 hours or whatever, but it's always good to have options and not to just be stuck with paying cash and going with whatever the going rate is.
Yeah, especially now with the economy and the way things cost, and hotel prices I think are the biggest crazy thing over the last 5 years, I would say, in this hobby. Flight prices, you can find deals, and I've certainly bought cash price. I mean, I've been talking about Frontier forever. I go on cheap Frontier flights all the time, but then I'm often staying in hotels where the cash rate's insane, and it's so important that I do have those points. And I've tried to diversify over the years, have some Hilton, have some Marriott, but Hyatt, obviously the big one, as you talk about Ultimate Rewards. And we've talked in the last few weeks, people should go back, all the new rules that Chase is putting in for business cards, for ink cards, lifetime language, all this sort of stuff, probably making it a little bit harder to earn. And so I've always said that having your skills diversified is a good thing. So not just being able to earn the points, figuring out how to spend them, but also figuring out when cash makes sense, how to save, where to find the discounts, all of that stuff. And then also earning some cash back on the side if you want to pay the cash portions of everything. And it can all work together. And whether we're talking about free travel, which nobody gets free travel, Joe, it's just a big discount.
Yeah, Mark, it didn't cost only $5.60. There was, at the very least, your time equity was in there. But it is always just a very big discount. But like you said, especially with the economy these days, it is wild. Like, if you have these points, which are, I guess ostensibly for some of the programs, you can redeem them for 1 cent per point. But if you can use that instead of cash that's in your bank account, it really can make a big difference, especially with the holidays coming up. If you're planning travel for, I know a lot of people after Thanksgiving start planning travel for the next year, 2026. And it feels great to not have to use cash. You can save it for presents or not buy presents or whatever. But cash is king, and that is what we can use to feed our families. And so it's great to be able to use points to offset a lot of these costs.
And as we're at the holidays, Thanksgiving just happened. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving, Joe. But I mean, I just was thinking about people at their families, how awkward this is. One of the biggest things I learn from people when I'm talking to them at meetups and stuff like that is they talk about how alienated they are from their family, from their friends, how people look at them as if they're doing something wrong, or, we've all gone through this. And then I think people that have been doing this a long time, like us, well, I'm not going to speak for you. I have completely stopped talking about it to family. I mean, it's weird because I have a big, I don't know, presence on the internet and stuff like that. But unless you know that and you come up and specifically talk to me, if you're like, hey, I heard you're the travel guy. Yeah, I'm not going to kind of do that. And so I don't know, maybe this is the year for people to go into their Christmas, their Hanukkah, their holiday celebrations with family and to teach them a thing or two about it. Or am I being too hopeful here?
Yeah, it's that weird look that you get always. I think the thing is, I don't know how it happened for you all the way back when, but for me, 15 years ago, it was me who was the one giving that weird look. And I think anyone who can rationally understand logical arguments, if you sit down and talk through everything from, number one, of course, pay off your balances in full. And you can explain how the credit card companies are offering these miles as basically ways to get people in who will not pay their balances off. But if you are paying your balances off, you're basically just earning redemptions, you're earning rebates on the side, and you can slowly start from there and go step by step. You really kind of have to explain the whole thing. To me, it's like if someone's not going to sit down and listen to you for 5 to 10 minutes about this, they're not going to have the patience to worry about this at all. It's still become a lot more mainstream. You see all these Chase Sapphire Preferred ads, Chase Sapphire Reserve ads. Everyone knows what the Chase Sapphire is. I find that even in my daily life, I see people flashing airline co-branded credit cards. Like I see the JetBlue card a ton here in the Boston area, or the Chase Sapphire. So it's gotten less.
I have to say something. So on a recent show, Mark says he sees a lot of the Delta cards in Detroit, right? That makes a lot of sense. You see a lot of the JetBlue cards here. I come to Vegas, all I see is people paying with $1 bills. I don't know what the hell is going on here. It's funny. True, they use cash way too much here, and I'm over. I want to see some co-branded credit cards in Vegas.
You mean not for tips? You mean just for regular stuff?
Yeah, like you'll go to the grocery store and people are using cash all the time.
Where's that Frontier branded card, Shawn?
I mean, it's at the bank where it belongs. I mean, Frontier, my status may run out. I may have to figure out another sneaky way, but yeah, 4 or 5 years of going on with Frontier status. I only have the gold status now, but even this month, I am flying Frontier 3 times, actually. Round trip, $40 for our meetup coming up this weekend in Texas, $19 each way, so $38. And then we're doing our trip back from our cruise coming up later this month, where we're flying back on Frontier on a direct flight. And I was able to redeem all the mileage in my account that we had accrued from all these cheap flights over the years for that flight, which was, right after Christmas, very expensive, used all the miles. So I am winning when it comes to Frontier. I mean, a lot of people out there could never be convinced that you could be winning when it comes to Frontier, but I am.
Frontier is the gift that keeps on giving to you, Shawn, and I love that. That's a good reminder. I think if I do go the Virgin Atlantic route, what I'm going to do is I have some city thank you points lying around that I haven't used that I feel like I don't know when I'm going to use them. And they're not like a huge amount. So I think now is especially a good time to clear out some of your orphan balances. If you can transfer them to something that you can use, I think that is a good idea and something that I'll do if I end up going this Virgin Atlantic route. Shawn, you say that it's people look at you weird for travel hacking. For me, it's like doubly weird for a lot of people because they don't know when I'm travel hacking or when I'm doing something as a travel agent. As you may or may not know, sometimes at this point, because I do well enough, companies like Royal Caribbean invited me on Star of the Seas for a preview cruise. Disney, I was just on the Disney Destiny, which is their brand new ship, on a preview cruise as well. So thank you to both Royal and Disney for those invitations. But people in my regular life, they see me going on these cruises, then they see me. Actually, I don't even post business class pictures anymore, Shawn, because it's just like my kids are embarrassed. My son like was embarrassed that I took him out of school to go on the Disney Destiny, and I was like, well, you don't have to go, man. It's okay. Like I can just leave. I can just leave you at home. You're gonna have to get over your embarrassment, or you're gonna have to go. But and so there's the confusion that people have between trips that companies allow me to go on. Again, thank you to Disney and Royal and Universal also had me at Epic. I think one of the last times I was on, we talked about that. And then stuff which is like my own redemption, which is more like I'm paying for it even if I'm using miles.
So my takeaway is you're a sellout. You're just taking all
I'm
these
definitely
free
a
trips,
sellout. No, that's
all this
100%. Yep, 100%. That's true.
all this VIP treatment everywhere. No, I mean, obviously you need to do that for the travel agent's business. And we haven't talked about Star of the Seas, which is the biggest cruise ship in the world, which you did. And maybe we're going to talk about that a little bit in a minute. But yeah, it's interesting with the kids, and just the point you made up. Social media is so big as they get older and they start to have more of their own social media presence, or at least social media starts to play a direct role in their lives where they can't really escape it. Then, their parent out there is going to have an effect on that. And I can't imagine, I could see getting in trouble at school with kids making fun of you because you're flying all these fancy places or whatever it is. But I could see that. And it's not something, first off, I don't think, talking about social media in general, we're both social media, quote unquote, influencers. I think we both hate that. But, in one way or the other, we do many jobs. But I don't think that people like us ever had to factor in how this affected their kids until these times where it is, happening, where their friends could go on and watch you do a podcast and then, make fun of you or give you a hard time. I don't know what it would be, but I don't know. It's not something I think about too much, but now I'm a little paranoid.
Dude, like the most embarrassing thing, thankfully that class graduated, was when one of my classes found Disney Deciphered, and they like came in one day and were joking with me about it. They were like joking about how they found this new podcast, and then they revealed it was me. I was very close with that class, and it was good, but it's just kind of crazy what is out there. I totally respect, and part of me is like, man, when the kids were really young, maybe I should not have included them in pictures and just left them out of it. At this point, it's too late, and they're old enough where I ask for their permission. And actually, when I travel with my sister's family, I ask her to make sure, if I'm posting full family pictures, I ask her for permission to post her kids. And her son is so funny. He's like, "What? I'm going to be on a podcast? I'm going to be famous." I'm like, "Nah, dude. We don't get that many views on YouTube. Don't worry about it. We're not MTM Vegas, let me tell you that much."
My daughter is obsessed with trying to get into videos. And first off, I don't know what the right answer is. I've posted pictures of my kids over the years. I've written about family travel, all that sort of stuff. But my kids were never the focus of anything I ever did, meaning that I wasn't using them for content. So if my daughter happens to show up in a video, like a Vegas B-roll or something like that, then if with her permission, she goes on there. I like to, yes, I don't ever, sometimes I want to take pictures that I know are going to be personal and private, and I make sure to go out of my way to express that those won't go anywhere. I'm, obviously asking for permission for other people, but it is something to keep in mind when you do have an audience, whether it's a giant audience or not. And, Disney Deciphered, it's interesting, like as a teacher though, I mean, I could see how that could go a completely different way, but it is another way that we're all interconnected, and probably a cool way that they got to learn a little bit more about their teacher.
Yeah, one of them started listening regularly, and I was like, we need to make sure you get through college and have a good paying job before you worry about going to Disney. Okay. I don't want to, I don't want to cause you to fall into debt or anything like that. You've seen those stories, but yeah, that was pretty funny. I mean, I am blessed to have a strong relationship with the majority of my students, for better or for worse. I'm not like the strictest teacher. My goal is for them to learn, but I just can't create that kind of environment. My kids' joke is, "Oh, so you're nice at school and mean at home, and mom is mean at school and nice at home." And it's a pretty fair assessment of our teaching and parenting styles. But I think one thing that has really helped me is a couple years ago, I decided that for certain trips that I take with my family, or even certain days on trips, I will just keep it for myself and I won't post anything on social media. Maybe I'll post something at the very end with like a couple pictures and be like, hey, we went here. It was nice. But I find that if I can just protect the family time for family time and not think about, because when I was on the Destiny with my kids, it was weird because I was like, okay, kids, you're going to need to watch yourselves, take care of yourselves for a couple hours because I got to go around and I got to do work. I got to take B-roll of all this stuff. I need to explore the different lounges and bars and take all these pictures. And, that was not, it's just first class problems, but that's not fun, right? Your kids are basically tagging along for a work trip. So on other trips that I'll take with my kids, I'll just be like, hey, this is just for us. I'm not going to post anything. And we're just going to live this like a normal family vacation, or as normal as it can be, even if I end up talking about it later on the podcast or something like that.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear from people out there how they deal with this, the social media aspect, the oversight, the outside sort of travel. I can tell you personally, I have a personal Facebook, which over the years became kind of crossed over. And so a lot of people from the travel world knew it, but there's a lot of people I knew, I know from the real world. And I stopped posting stuff there. And so people could find Miles to Memories. And it wasn't because, oh, you need to follow my brand. It was because I don't want to be that person that's bragging on his. I mean, first of all, I'm never bragging. I mean, that's the truth. I'm never meaning to brag. Let's put it that way. But it can come across that way. And sometimes, people don't have they don't have that opportunity yet. And, the way I get around it is you and I have both, Mark too, or a lot of people in this space have always tried to help people. So when it comes to them saying, oh, I want to go to Paris, we can help you get there. I mean, that's just the way it is. And so I'd rather kind of reach those people than the people I know in person who are going to be like, oh my God, he's flying business class again and again and again. And yeah, so those people, they might have seen a picture or two of me on business class, but not nearly to that level. And yeah, it's hard. But the important thing is, and I think this is something that's been just generally easy for me over the years, is it's weird. We do this for business. We need clicks. We need people to view it. We want people to engage with our content. We want people to like what we do, like what we say, all that sort of stuff. But I really don't care if the people in my life do or not. I don't care if they like a post on Facebook. That doesn't give me the juju that I need. And actually reaching audiences like we do here and elsewhere, that gives me the feedback and that gives me what I need. But I think we all need to be a little careful with that dopamine hit from the like button.
Yeah, I don't even want to think about what our kids growing up, your son is probably a little bit of a bridge generation, but your daughter and my kids, like when they get into social media, I just don't know what that's going to be like for them. And I'm very worried. My son is already obsessed with the dopamine hit from the dinging on Duolingo. So I can't even imagine what dopamine hits are going to be like if and when he gets on Instagram and stuff like that. I found myself laughing when you were talking about not posting on your personal Facebook, because I was like, oh, Mark doesn't seem to have a problem with that. And I think that's the last time I'm going to insult Mark on this podcast. I've been making fun of him too much on a podcast that he's not going to listen to.
But I mean, Mark has the same thing where his Facebook became, obviously running the Miles to Memories group for years, but then Travel on Points, which has a huge, huge Facebook group. So that ecosystem there. So there really is kind of a blending of the lines, and almost like our Facebooks are kind of work with personal people we know attached to him. And I'd say his is even, I mean, he has a lot more friends on Facebook than I do, but yeah, I feel like it's just an extension of that. So the lines get blurred. And then of course, people we meet in this hobby and doing all this, they become friends. So it's not even like they're just something else. But it's nice to talk to people who travel. We don't only have you for a certain amount of time. And I do want to plug, you and I are doing a monthly show now in the Diamond Lounge, the Shawn and Joe show. Should we call it the Joe and Shawn show? I feel like it would sound better that way.
Shawn and Joe sounds good to me. And really quickly, just because I've been insulting him so much, for those of you who are new listeners or viewers of this podcast, Shawn, Mark, and I recorded for like 4 or 5 years together every single week. And so we have a long-standing relationship. In fact, maybe I should get on one of these podcasts with you guys if you'll have me, just so Mark and I can bust each other's balls in person. So I'm not just out here being vindictive towards Mark. I love Mark.
And on top of that, Joe co-hosted the show once Mark left for a couple years as well. And, if Mark and you are on the show, then I just basically sit back and I don't have anything to say because I can't get a word in edgewise.
How dare you? How dare you?
It's
But
true.
yes, Shawn and Joe show. I think that works for me. I think that sounds better.
So we're doing that once a month in the Diamond Lounge. So kind of what we used to do here on the show, behind the scenes, we're going to talk, obviously some Disney. We like Disney. We like cruises, whatever's going on. And we are going to bring that show to Diamond. We had done it a little bit already this year, but now we are going to be doing it once a month. And we are excited to bring that behind the paywall. For people who don't know what Diamond is, we have the top Slack in the business run by Benji and our team of moderators, which is incredible. Also, the Spending Time podcast, all your spending needs addressed there. The Shawn and Joe show, we have monthly chats, all that sort of stuff. It's a great group, patreon.com/miles to memories. I haven't plugged it in a while, so figured it was time to do that.
Yeah, sure. Bring the sellout on for when you're going to plug your paid subscription stuff. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah, but I just want one more shout out to Benji and the team of moderators. They do an amazing job in the Slack, and that is really the heart of it. And, this weekend I'm headed to San Antonio. We have about 90 people showing up there for a meetup, which is incredible, stressful, and it will be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Are you planning the meetups now, or is Jasmine helping out? How do you guys do that organization these days?
Jasmine plans all the meetups, or we get together and say, okay, here's what our goals are, but she does all the logistics. Thank you for reminding me. I need to thank her a ton. And she's been doing that for a couple of years now, gotten really good at it, and just putting together incredible meetups as they've grown. And like I said, almost 90 people coming to San Antonio, which should be good. We're down by the Riverwalk. It'll be a fun weekend. And this is the kind of stuff that we tell. Mark says this all the time. He does a lot of events for his work to meet people in person, and it'll change your life.
Yeah, that's where all the fun is. And that's where, and of course, Disney fandom is like that too. Everybody looks at you like you're a freaking weirdo, except for you go to these meetups and we can all be weirdos together and talk about the stuff we love without anyone looking at us sideways or thinking that we have two heads.
Yep, for sure. And then I just want to talk about Star of the Seas really quick, Joe. How was it? This is the largest cruise ship in the world, almost like a theme park at sea. What is it, like 280,000 gross tons or something like that? Just a massive, massive ship.
It's crazy. I was pretty impressed. I think, I know you love Royal Caribbean and you're a regular sailor of them, but I feel like pictures I've seen, videos I've seen of their older ships, I'm like, because I'm a Disney guy and Disney is quote unquote a luxury cruise line, even though their prices are beyond that, as everything is with Disney. You can see our former podcasts where you and I have talked about that before, Shawn. I think it's worth it, but I totally get why people don't think Disney is worth it. Star of the Seas is getting closer to Disney prices, and Icon and Utopia, the ships that have come out the last 3 years. But Star, like you said, is the biggest, and I was really impressed. I really like what Royal does with their newer ships is they have this neighborhood system where it really feels like each area of the ship is just its distinct thing. And I was impressed as a Disney person who obviously is looking for stuff for kids and families. Their Surfside section, which is the kids centric section, I thought that was really well done. You can be there with the family. Adults, it's tucked on the back side of the ship, so adults don't feel like, it's almost like the reverse of an adult section. It's like, this is the kids section, and I thought that was great. And then the other crazy thing is, there's basically like a water park on the top pool deck. It's 6 different water slides. One had an issue right before on Icon, the sister ship, and so I only got to ride 5 of the 6. But this is a huge water park, and this is just 2 of the 7, 8 neighborhoods that are on the ship. There's just a ton to do. We were only on there for 3 nights, and I was impressed with Royal. I don't know if I could. 7-night itineraries aren't my jam, and Star and Icon only do 7-night sailings, and so I don't know if I could be on there for 7 nights, but like a 4 or 5 night sailing on the Star would be perfect for me.
That's so weird, because that really is the Disney cruise influence on you, because most cruisers would say, I would never even consider a 3 and 4 day cruise. Those are really for the less serious people. But in the Disney cruise line space, even the new ships debut with 4-day itineraries, and that would never happen on any other cruise line. They're going to put it like Royal Caribbean, right? It's going to go to the Caribbean out of, usually out of Florida. Galveston's starting to see some new ships too, but the point being, it's going to be 1-week itineraries, all that sort of stuff. Disney does it different. And, but to your point, a 4-day Disney cruise could cost the same as a 7-day or longer cruise on other cruise lines. But Royal has gotten more expensive. I just look at those. So I haven't done the Oasis class or, which is terrible at this point, or the Icon class, which is this largest class of ship. I have done the Odyssey of the Seas, which is just the step below that. But their ship design is great. And, for a mass market cruise line, nobody's doing it better. If you have kids, nobody's doing it better. I do like some of the other, we've been sailing with Princess lately. I really enjoy that, but it's sort of the opposite of all the spectacle with the water parks and all of that. They have a kids club, but they're not throwing all the things on it. The thing about Icon of the Seas or Star of the Seas, when you look at pictures of it, it just doesn't seem like it should float. It feels like there's just too much crap on top of the decks.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like they just took a gigantic building and just dropped it in the water and somehow it floats. Yeah, there's some serious physics going on there, allowing it to float. But I agree with you. I will say that while there's a ton to do on those ships, they are ugly. Like they just look like, we showed Wally in class last week because it was the half day before Thanksgiving, and they look like the water version of those gigantic cruise ships that people had in Wally when they went to escape the Earth after they destroyed the planet. And ironically, we must say, even though both of us love cruising, like cruising is aiding to destroying our planet with all the waste that it creates and stuff. So
I thought you were going in a different direction with that, but yeah, certainly Wally is predicting the future faster than we ever expected.
Yes, for sure. But I do love those ships. I would love to pick your brain, Shawn. I'm helping my parents. They're planning like a college reunion cruise on Independence of the Seas. So I think that's Freedom class. So I'd love to pick your brain as to how you feel about the Freedom class, because it's an older class of ship on Royal Caribbean, but maybe it will be more intimate and nicer in general, because I do feel like part of the thing that I felt with the Star was it just felt like too much. It felt like a little bit excessive, even though it was a lot of fun.
Well, the Freedom of the Seas was the largest cruise ship in the world when it debuted back, 20 years ago or something. So it's still pretty large compared to it, it'd be on the larger size of the average cruise ship today. So it's still a pretty decent sized ship. And I think the Freedom of the Seas and that whole class introduced the Royal Promenade, which is huge on Royal Caribbean. And we did the MTM Diamond cruise on Freedom of the Seas a few years ago, and that was a 3-day cruise, and it was just packed. It was like the ship was 100% sold out, and it just felt very overwhelming. I also sailed the Freedom of the Seas maybe 10 years ago and really liked it. So yeah, I feel like you get some of the stuff from more modern Royal Caribbean ships, also some of the design quirks that they sort of fixed later on, but I think they're a pretty solid ship. I also did the class before the Freedom. I didn't like that as much. Forget the name of it, but I would say anything Freedom class and beyond is going to have enough of the DNA of modern Royal Caribbean, but nothing is going to be like the newer Oasis class or Icon class ships.
Yeah, that's good to know, because my mom was like, "Oh, can you come on and help us with the AV because we want to have a meeting and stuff like that?" So, we'll see. Maybe I'll bring a kid along for that if they're not too embarrassed. They won't have to miss school for it, at least, because it's going to be in the summer.
This is a big problem for cruise lines, and you talk about Icon of the Seas or Star of the Seas not looking like a cruise ship, and Disney always wanted their classic ocean liner look, right? And Disney, their older ships look like classic ocean liners, and their newer ones don't. And certainly the World Adventure, what is the one in Singapore? That one obviously came from a different cruise line, doesn't look anything like that. So I feel like even in Disney, where they went out of their way to kind of romanticize what a cruise ship could be, bigger size, the economics of having more cabins, putting more people on the ship has won out. And that's what we're seeing in the industry.
Yeah, I agree. They do not look classic anymore, but I guess once you're on the ship, you don't really, it's like, the other funny thing about the Eiffel Tower, to bring this full circle, is there's that building. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a bit of an eyesore. But some people say that that's the best view in Paris because the building itself isn't in the view when you go see it. I can't remember what that building's called. There's a Hyatt Regency nearby that one.
Yeah, well, the Hyatt Regency is in the building. I don't think it's that building, though. It's a different one. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. I've seen the TikToks about
the ugly building. Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. I'm not even on TikTok. See, this is just my old school knowledge coming through.
TikTok invades Twitter, and then I see it there. But yeah, I've heard about that, and yeah, people should go to Paris. That's all I got to say. I'm very excited for next week. I'm very nervous to hear what Mark has to say. I don't know why I own like what Mark thinks about things or why it matters so much to me. But in this case, I feel like he's going to figure out the vibes because Mark is a vibes guy. Get past all the crap. London and Paris, the tourist areas suck. Get past all the crap, get to the vibes. And both those cities have really cool vibes. So I can't wait. Next week, he'll tell us how it all went. He's been complaining about his in-laws for weeks too. So I hope they really made it hard for him. I hope they stuck it to him.
Yeah, so it was his in-laws, so that's why he did send them to the back. So it's good to know that.
No, it wasn't his. I use that word too. It's his parents. Last week I said in-laws, and then he thought I was talking about his wife's parents. Yes, it's his parents and his sister and stuff. So
yeah, there's a chance that she listens to the podcast because he definitely doesn't. Yeah, I think to me in Paris, and we have toured through the rest of France. This was, I think, before Points and Miles, or very early on in my Points and Miles game dumb or whatever. But we drove around the Alsace area of France. We've driven around lots of areas in France. And even though I do think it's true that the food, people say that Paris has like all types of French food, but it's the B version of everything. Even though I think that is true, like the food that we had elsewhere was better, it's still really amazing food. At the very least, you just get yourself a ham and cheese sandwich with butter on a baguette. I can't remember the French term for these sandwiches, and it's awesome. It's amazing. So hopefully Mark is enjoying himself some French baked goods because, they call it French. They just call it bread over there.
Yeah, last week he made fun of me for saying I like to go to grocery stores, buy a baguette, some stinky cheese, and go eat it in the park. And he said, so it's an ungrilled cheese sandwich or something? What? Like, you don't need anything more than that. Can't teach culture. You can't teach culture. And we can't wait to see what the French have to say about him when he returns. Joe is killing it, as you kind of humbly said earlier, one of the top travel agents in the entire country, I would imagine by now. But yeah, I mean, that's going well. Like I said, we're going to jump into the Patreon. We're going to talk Disney. I have some cruise ship stuff I want to talk about. Joe and I haven't talked in a while, so we're going to catch up on Europa Park, some really cool stuff behind the paywall on Patreon. But in the meantime, Joe, where can people find you when they're not listening to this fine podcast?
You can find me at As the Joe Flies on social media. And if you're looking to book a trip on Cash, which when it's Disney, a lot of times you're going to have to book it on Cash anyways, you can check me out at Joseph Chung at travelmation.net. That's M as in Mary. Where are you at, Shawn? I know you guys don't do this, but I'm here, so you got it.
Joe's bringing back the round robin. Patreon.com/miles to memory is going to really plug the Slack here, the Diamond Group. It's not just Slack, meetups, online chats, the Shawn and Joe show. What more do you want? Head over to Patreon for that. And we have the Vegas show Tuesdays and Fridays. This show every Monday. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. Mark will be back next week. Thanks for watching and listening. Talk to you next time.
See ya.